So we got Henry Cejudo versus Vera, Garry versus Geoff Neal, and Yadong versus Rob Font, as well as many other fight announcements that have been made recently. And as you can see, the hair has gone blonde. As I did say in my last video, I've made a bit of a change in the spirit of Oliveira winning. Um, I've gone blonde, and I'm gonna see what happens. Maybe I'll get some powers with the blonde Oliveira hair. But let me know what you think of that. Don't give me too much a hard time. Just having fun, experimenting. And if he wins against Islam, I'm keeping this because it might just work. Um, but moving on to the fight announcements, we got to start off the most recent one and the biggest fight announcement of the lot. Henry Cejudo versus Vera has been announced for UFC 292. That's August 19th in Boston. Um, it's a really good fight here. Looking forward to this one a lot. It's going to be on the main card, 3-rounder. Not sure where, probably maybe a main card opener or the third fight on the card. But a really good fight in the bantamweight division, and will definitely be making the title picture a lot clearer in the next coming months. Once that UFC 292 card has happened, obviously there's a lot of other bantamweight fights on there. Um, you got the main event, obviously Sterling versus O'Malley, and then you've got this, and then also Rob Font versus Song Yadong's on there as well. And Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov is rumored to be headlining a fight night 2 weeks earlier. So that month of August is really going to give us a lot of clarity on the bantamweight division, and we're going to know really what's next come September. But with this fight, um, obviously Cejudo coming off the split decision loss to Aljo at UFC 288, and then Cheeto's coming off the decision loss to Corey Sandhagen in March. So um, both losses, but if you look into the fights, you'd say Cejudo's coming off the better performance. Um, Cheeto's last fight against Sandhagen um, really just showed he was a step behind that top of the division and just wasn't able to hang with Sandhagen really anywhere. He was outstruck, outgrappled, and held down and punched from on the ground and just really dominated everywhere to a very clear decision, which somehow one judge gave to Vera. But don't let that fool you. That split decision is not the same split decision that we see Cejudo with Aljamain Sterling. Those are two completely different fights. But into the actual fight itself with Cejudo, I think this is a good matchup for him to win. I think he's really gonna find a good time with Marlon Vera, and I think his skills are gonna really help him get this one done by a decision or maybe a TKO or submission. TKO maybe due to ground strikes. Um, I just think Vera's wrestling is not good enough. It's not proven enough. Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist. That's not what you want to see. Vera's recent fights, obviously, he got taken down and dominated by Sandhagen. He got taken down by Dominic Cruz a few times, taken down by Frankie Edgar. And apart from the Sandhagen fight, he won all of those fights, but you just got to look at it and really kind of see. You're getting taken down by strikers. Cejudo's not a striker. He's good at striking, but his base is a wrestler. Cejudo's a Olympic gold medalist wrestler, much higher caliber of grappler than a Corey Sandhagen or a Dominic Cruz or a Frankie Edgar. It's just much higher. There's clear levels in this. So I just think nothing I've seen from Vera has shown me he's going to be able to defend those takedowns. So I just see him getting held down, controlled on the ground, and dominated to probably a decision loss. 3 rounds for Cejudo also helps him, in my opinion. I think Vera, being a very slow starter, really struggles to put some output together in the first few rounds. And I think he's going to really struggle against Cejudo, even in the striking if he doesn't go for the takedowns. I think Cejudo is capable of really making the reads a lot earlier than Vera. I think Vera needs those fourth and fifth rounds to really see what his opponent's doing and really be able to time them for those big shots that he does find as the moneymakers in his fights and how he usually does get the win. But against Sandhagen in that fight, you just saw he couldn't find that shot. Sandhagen was too elusive, too long, keeping him at range and just wouldn't let him find that big shot to end the night for him. So I think this is a really good matchup for Cejudo. For Vera, respect for taking it. Obviously, out of anyone in the division, this is the guy that, if you win, you're really back in there for a title shot. Obviously, a tough loss to Sanhagen, but a win here would really put him back in line. And if O'Malley were to win and he were to win, that's a fight right there to make straight away. Um, but I don't think he's going to win. I've got Cejudo winning a decision. I think he's better in the grappling clearly, and even in the striking over 3 rounds, I'd almost favour Cejudo to just outpoint Vera with more output. Gets in and out really well. Cejudo doesn't get hit a hell of a lot. Doesn't get dropped when he does. He's got a decent chin. Vera's obviously got one of the best chins in the sport right now. So I don't see Cejudo knocking out Vera. But he could get a TKO due to ground strikes, maybe, if he can get that grappling really going and get in a dominant position. But I think a decision win is more likely for Henry Cejudo. Moving on, Garry versus Geoff Neal. That's also official for the same card, UFC 292 in Boston. And it's a big step up for Garry. Really good fight in the welterweight division. I'm looking forward to it a lot. And this is a good fight to really test, really gauge where Garry's at with his skills. If he's to beat a Geoff Neal, he's for real, and he's on his way to a title. He's 1 or 2 wins away from the title if he wins this fight. Um, as far as the fight itself goes, I think it's gonna really be a tough one to pick. I'll have to look into it a little bit more as we get closer to it. This is just an early prediction. I might lean Garry right now by a decision. I think we've seen Geoff Neal in the past um, struggle with range fighters, people that have the can keep some distance on him. I do actually think he's got a longer arm reach than Garry, but Garry being a lot taller, got the kicks and the long legs as well, and a really slick puncher that I think can just pop Garry at range. So yeah, I just see him popping Garry at range. Sorry, popping Neal at range, and if he's gonna win that decision, I think that's what he's gonna have to do. So there's a real worry there with the power for Neal. Um, Garry got dropped by Song Kanan. He's been hurt in his debut, gets touched up a bit in fights, but when he gets going, he's one of the best strikers in that welterweight division. Those combos he's putting together on Song Kanan, the finishing sequence in his debut with that lean back right hand, the head kick against D-Rod. This guy's one of the slickest strikers in the division, but he's got, from what I'm seeing so far, he's got a little bit of a chin issue. So I can definitely see Geoff Neal catching him badly, putting him down maybe. So if Geoff Neal's going to win, I think it's going to be a KO. This fight's 3 rounds. If it goes the distance, I think Garry's just going to be doing enough to win with output, picking at him at range, landing the good shots. And we saw Shovkat win the striking against Geoff Neal. Shovkat trains with Garry as well. Um, and I think part of the real motivation probably for Garry taking this fight would be if he is, and I'm not saying this is happening, but if he is outstriking Shavkat Rakhmonov in the gym, training together, then that would really be a motivating factor for him to say, I can win this fight. Geoff Neal's not going to shoot takedowns on me. I can beat this guy in the striking if I'm beating Shavkat in the striking. I'm again not saying that he is a better striker than Shavkat, but if he would know if he is. He trains with him, and out of the two of them, they know who's a better striker. So maybe that's the reason why he's taking this fight. If it is, then we could be seeing a dominant decision win, or maybe even a finish. But I don't see him finishing Neal. Um, Neal got finished by Shavkat, but it wasn't from the strikes. He did get rocked and stuff at times, but ultimately the submission finish was the finisher of the night for Shavkat to get it done over Geoff Neal. And definitely don't see Garry finishing Geoff Neal with a submission. So he could catch him and put him down, but Neal's shown to have a pretty good chin overall. Um, Power edge going to be with Neal. Speed's got to go with Garry. The combinations and the slickness in the striking, I'm going to go with Garry. Grappling's not going to be a factor in this fight. Um, Garry was calling for like a Neal Magny fight after the D-Rod win. Um, Neal Magny's fighting Philip Rowe in a few weeks' time, so it would have been kind of a weird one to call out. Ends up getting Geoff Neal ranked number 8 in the division, I believe. Garry's ranked number 13. Um, so big step up, jumping him to the top 10. If he does win, it'll be great to see. But moving on. So I'll go with Ian Garry by decision, but prediction subject to change maybe. Moving on. Rob Font versus Song Yadong is in the works for UFC 292 as well in that Boston card. So that's 3 fights um on that Boston card, or looking to be on that Boston card. So it's looking like a really good card right now. Um, Song Yadong versus Rob Font is a really good, really fun matchup in the striking. It's going to be a real treat to watch on the feet for striking purists and striking fans. Um, and I do like Song Yadong's chances in this fight. I think in his last few fights we saw against Ricky Simone, dominated him on the feet and held it competitive with Corey Sandhagen. If we're being honest, he looked better than Cheeto in the striking against Corey Sandhagen. Um, KO'd Marlon Rice, kind of hard to gauge that win, but he's looked really impressive. With good takedown defense as well. Again, just like with the Garry and Neal fight, not going to be any grappling in this fight, I don't believe. If there is, it'll probably be initiated from Song Yadong, but I doubt it. I think he's going to win in the striking by a knockout. I think Font has just shown to be a little bit too chinny and a bit too susceptible to damage in his last fights and getting hit. We saw against Vera, he got put through a blender. He was out techniquing Vera in that fight, but was just getting hit at the wrong times. And when he got hit by Vera, he was getting rocked. I know Vera hits hard, but Song hits hard as well, so it's not a good matchup for Font in my opinion. Even though Rob Font is one of the best boxers in that bantamweight division, one of the best boxers in MMA. But even in the Giannis fight, he got the first round KO. So you're like, oh, he dominated him, he smoked him. But even Giannis was hitting him clean. Ultimately, I picked him to beat Giannis with confidence because I saw Giannis's fights before, and he was getting jabbed up, and I'm like, who's got a better jab than Rob Font? He's gonna find that all night long. Um, so I got that pick right. But now I'm picking against Rob Font. I'm going to pick Song Yadong to KO him inside the distance, inside 2 rounds, I'm going to say. Um, I think he's just going to. I think the striking itself in the technique is going to be relatively even, but I just think there's going to be a big difference in the damage that you see when each guy lands. I think when you're seeing Song land, you're seeing him hurt and wobble and cut open and put down Rob Font. I think when you're seeing Rob Font land, you're seeing Song maybe get a bloodied nose, but just walk through it and just march forward and just really go for that finish. At only 25 years of age, Song Yadong, real prospect in the bantamweight division. I think I see him getting a belt. He's one of my favorite fighters in the sport, one of my favorite fighters in the bantamweight division as well. Um, and I think he's on his way to a title, and I think the next step in that journey is to KO Rob Font in the first round, which I believe he will. First or second, actually. I think Font's going to be doing well, but I think it's going to be like the Vera fight. He might be winning the first and just gets cracked, loses the first rounds, gets saved by the bell. Same thing in the second. He's starting to get back into it. He's busted up with damage. He's not looking good. And then cracked again. And this time there'll be long enough in the round for Song Yadong to get a finish. I see him cracking him with a hook, a cross maybe, probably not a kick or a knee. That's more Vera's kind of thing that he was getting him with. Song obviously does throw kicks, but he's very slick with the boxing, so I think he's going to catch Font with those hooks and those crosses, blitzing in with the combos, land some elbows as well. Font's really susceptible to the damage showing on the skin as well. He got busted up in the Vera fight. His eyes blew up like balloons. Face was all just blown up, and was it a good look for him? And then even in the Giannis fight, just after a few shots from Giannis, his face is starting to show damage again, and it's looking like he's gone a full 3 rounds after that Giannis fight, when in reality he got that KO. Um, So I don't think Font's shots are going to be powerful enough to hurt Song, but I think Songs are going to be powerful enough to hurt and put down and finish Rob Font. So I'm picking Song Yadong by round 2 KO. Moving on, Chris Weidman versus Brad Tavares, also for that August 19th card in Boston. That's another fight on there. So we've got a lot of fight announcements for Boston. Um, and this is a really good one. Chris Weidman obviously making his return since he got that leg kick TKO loss to Uriah Hall, one of the most brutal leg snaps that we've seen. Obviously, the curse with Anderson Silva as well. What goes around comes around, and he injured his leg badly, snapped the bone, and he's been out since UFC 261. So that's what close to 2 years. It's not a good look for him coming back. I'm picking Brad Tavares to beat him easily. Um, I think Weidman, obviously, good in the grappling, good in the wrestling, but who's got a better takedown defense at middleweight apart from Rob Whittaker than Brad Tavares? Brad Tavares is shown very good takedown defense and just being a solid fighter overall. And just combine that overall, to be honest, with the fact that Weidman's coming back after one of the most brutal, probably 9 times out of 10 career-ending injuries that we've ever seen, and to just come back against a guy who I think one of his biggest strengths counters one of Weidman's biggest strengths in the grappling. So I think Tavares is going to win by a. It's kind of hard to say. Maybe a TKO, maybe a decision. Weidman said he's planning on throwing the hardest leg kick possible as soon as the fight starts. So that kind of just shows you the mindset he's in. That's a terrible idea. I hope he's joking, but I actually don't think he is. So I think Tavares is just going to out technique, outpoint him. Weidman's going to be rusty coming off 2 year layoff, and I don't think it's going to look good for him at all. Moving on, Billy Quarintillo versus Damon Jackson announced for August 5th. That's a Nashville fight night. Um, really good fight. Billy Quarintillo coming off that KO loss to Edson Barboza in April. So that's a bit worrying in terms of the timeline of when he was coming back. Damon Jackson coming off a KO loss to Dan Ige in January. So bit of a difference in the recovery time there that these two have had. Quarintillo got put out bad by the knee from Barboza. But I think he'll win this fight. I think we've seen him do really well. He fought Shane Burgos, had a good scrap with him. Barboza, like he's had some good scraps, and he's looked good in his career so far. Just outside that top 15 level, and I think that's the same with Damon Jackson. But I just think Quarantillo is a better, hungrier, and tougher fighter than Jackson, so I'm going to pick him to win by a TKO. I think he'll catch him. Um, Moving on, Chris Daukaus versus Khalil Rountree. This has been rebooked for August 12th. It's an Apex Fight Night headlined by RDA versus Vicente Luque. I'm picking Khalil Rountree by KO. He's the kryptonite to Chris Daukaus, and we know what I mean by that. I don't have to explain it. Chris Daukaus' last few opponents, let's say, they've all had the same strength over him, or the same advantage, or the same difference over him, you could say. But all jokes aside, it's a terrible matchup for Daukaus. He's known to have a very average, poor chin, and Rountree is known to hit pretty hard. Coming down to light heavyweight as well, Daukaus didn't even show to be that quick at heavyweight. So if I'm not gonna be trusting him to be ridiculously quick at light heavyweight, and he hasn't shown ridiculous power either. So I'm not gonna pick him to KO Rountree by any means. You're not doing that unless you're Johnny Walker or other fighters that actually have power. So I'm going to pick Rountree to win by a round 1 KO and continue the streak of bad luck for Chris Daukaus. Moving on, OSP Ovince versus Ion Cutelaba. That's announced also for August 12th. So we're getting this month of August booked up. This fight, terrible matchup for OSP. He should be retired. Cutelaba will KO him. If he doesn't, he's nothing in the sport. Cutelaba by round 1 KO, coming off the win over Bosa. He's got his confidence back now. OSP coming off the loss to Felipe Lins, who isn't the best fighter and isn't even known for having ridiculous power. So Cutelaba should KO him. We're going to go through some other ones quickly here. Those are most of the important ones out of the way. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Ludovic Klein. I'll go with Bahamondes. Klein had that draw, but it should have been a loss to Guy Herbert. Herbert outpointed him and won that fight 2 rounds to 1, but got a point taken. So I'll go Bahamondes. I believe that's also August 12th. August 5th. Sorry, that's August 5th. So that's the Nashville card. Another good fight on there. Viviane Araujo versus Casey O'Neill in Australia. I'm gonna pick Araujo. I think Casey O'Neill really got kind of fraud checked by Jennifer Maia in her last fight and just shown to be not all that on the feet. I think Araujo's fought Alexa Grasso, the current champion. Casey O'Neill's toughest fight was Maia, and she lost. Before that, nothing crazy. So in Sydney, an Australian fighting in Australia, but I don't think she's going to get the win in front of her home fans. Hopefully, she proves me wrong and has a big moment in front of her country. But I'm picking Araujo by decision. Also, another fight on that Australia card: Carlos Ulberg versus Dawoon Jung. Carlos Ulberg by knockout, round 1 knockout. Otherwise, he's failed the task. I think, that this should be the last. The Carlos Ulberg experiment has kind of, it's been a bit different to most. He hasn't really progressed up the rankings. He lost to Kennedy Izinchukwu, but then after that, he fought Cutelaba, not Cutelaba. He fought Neganmayanu. He fought Pateria, and now he's fighting Dawoon Jung. So not really a jump up in competition. I think they're just getting him these KOs to really get his octagon experience up. And then I think with a KO here in Australia, in front of his, won't say home fans, he's Kiwi, but in front of his neighbours, he should get a KO and then move on to a ranked opponent. And I'm just going to go through some other quicker ones. Marcus McGee versus Gaston Bolanos for August 12th. I'll go with McGee. He impressed me in his last fight. Bolanos, both of them have one fight in the UFC, both won, but I think Marcus McGee just showed a bit more to say he's going to win this fight. In Tafon Nchukwi versus AJ Dobson for August 12th, I'll go with Nchukwi. What else? We got, just scrolling through Big Marcel here. Bruna Brazil versus Shauna Benon. I'll go with Bruna Brazil. She got a win and a finish in her last fight. Benon is making her debut. That's for July 22nd on the London card. I'll pick Brazil by decision this time. Maria Moroz versus Corinne Silva. I'm going to go Corinne Silva by submission. She looked really good in the last fight, but a very quick ankle lock, Achilles lock sort of submission blew out her opponent's knee badly. Moroz hasn't fought in a bit, not as impressive in a recent fight, so I'm going to pick Silva to win by submission. Just a few more. Lupe Godinez versus Sam Hughes for September 16th at T-Mobile Arena. This is kind of mystery card. We don't know what it is yet, if it's going to be a fight night or a pay-per-view maybe, but it's at T-Mobile, so it should be a big card. I'll pick Godinez by decision. Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett for August 12th. I'll go with Fremd. What else do we have? Francis Marshall versus Isaac Dolgarian. I'll pick Marshall. What else we got? Andrea Lee versus Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva fought recently, got a very impressive, dominant win. And now she's moving on to the rankings. And I'm going to pick her to beat Andrea Lee. She's a real prospect in that women's flyweight division. So that's also for August 19th. So another fight on there. I'll pick Natalia Silva by a TKO. Jake Collier versus Volta Ignacio Walker. Heavyweights. It's basically a coin flip between these guys as fat heavyweights. I'll go Collier with the UFC experience. His opponent's making his debut, so I'll pick Collier to win. And then last one, Trevor Peake versus Jose Mariscal. That's an updated fight for the Jacksonville card on June 24th. So I'm going to pick over Peak to win by knockout. He looked really fun, really impressive in his debut. Not the most technical fighter, but I'm backing him to win, and his opponent's making his debut. So I think Peak's had that debut nerves out the way. His opponent hasn't, so I'm going to pick him to win. But that is all the fight announcements for today. Cejudo and Vera, Garry and Neal, and Font versus Yadong are the main ones, with Weidman versus Tavares and Jackson versus Quarintillo. Also very solid fights being made. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.